The most disappointing thing about Final Fantasy XV, the thing that made me want to sue Japan, was the ending. I spent 163 hours with 4 beloved characters, and I was relishing the day when the Brotherhood would push their way through the final battles, defeat Arden, where we would finally learn who the heck he was, and then Noct would take his rightful place on the throne, willing to sacrifice the rest of his life in service to rebuilding Insomnia and bringing peace to the land, even without a romantic companion by his side, where we would actually get to see our characters in the city of Insomnia after it had been rebuilt. The name of the quest was a cure for insomnia. We never saw that cure. It was never cured. We had heard and we had talked about insomnia the entire game, destroyed Magitex and defeated monsters outside of its gates, but we had to wait until chapter 14 to actually see the place in person. And even then, it was a pile of flaming rubble. Really cool looking rubble, but rubble nonetheless. Even that one load screen made it seem like someday we were working toward that ending, and that was the ending I wanted. But instead of a beautiful payoff to all the hard work and anticipation, they took all the story's potential and they flushed it down the toilet. A very sad, confusing toilet. Okay. I'm not saying that the ending had to be completely happy or anything like that. We don't need to give the 4 main characters medals on the steps of the palace and then Iggy's sight is miraculously healed by some blue flower petals or something. But you gotta pay off some sort of redemption regarding the love we have of the bond between the 4 principal characters. Instead, the only supposedly happy payoff was Noct sacrificing his life for some unclear reason, only to end up in an eternal sleep next to the supposed love interest none of us really bought into. So the payoff we got was the one we didn't care about, which felt like a punch in the face. And all the other payoffs we wanted, like seeing Noct sacrifice his life metaphorically to heal insomnia and seeing the bond between the Brotherhood live on, were untouched. Rather, the opposite is what happened. And we were given more time earlier in the game to mourn that random Jared character than the end of the Brotherhood that we actually really cared about.
Poor Jared.
Jared's the one we ought to thank.
All thanks to Jared.
Justice for Jared. Thanks for everything.
The last time we see the Brotherhood, it's during the credits, and they're gathered around the campfire in some vague point in time. Noct then struggles to express the love he has for the guys, but he doesn't quite get there, and then it's depressingly over. Literally, the very last time we see Prompto, he is crying. Again, I don't think everything needs to be happy. I like the idea of Noct struggling to express the love he has for his friends before he departs on a difficult mission that he may not come back from. I like the idea of Prompto crying in concern and sadness for his friend, but that shouldn't be the last way we see Prompto. You can't leave us on a depressing note and think that by seeing Noct reunited with Luna on the title screen with a brighter background and mockingly happier music, that we're not gonna feel a little cheated. Or let's compromise. If they insist on Noct dying, okay, fine. But hint as to why he has to die beforehand. Help us to understand that this journey is leading to an important self-sacrifice. Don't just kill the main character and expect us to be on board without any explanation. If you insist that Noct die, then at least leave the ending redemptive with the remaining 3 members of the Brotherhood maybe longing in sadness, but also greatly proud of the sacrifice their dear king and their close friend made for the good of the people, and then show how it really changed the world for good. You can still have the sadness if you combine it with at least a little hope. Though I still don't think Noct should have died. This is really just a band-aid over a broadsword wound for me. Okay, I know, it's a Final Fantasy. Each game has had their story vagueness and plot holes and elements left to interpretation, and they rarely pay off everything I wish they would. And maybe I should have expected that with Final Fantasy XV. And I did, to be honest, at first. But then, over time, I felt myself relating to the characters more closely than I have in the past. I was pulled into the story enough to dare to hope that this one would actually pay off in the end. Parts of the game told me it would. Okay, Iris called Noct when he appeared after a 10-year absence, and she said she had something to tell him later.
There's something I wanted to talk with you about.
What?
It can wait. I'd rather talk about it in person.
That made me think that there would be a later, but there wasn't. So what was the point? Though I'm glad those two didn't end up together because, no. And what happened to Cindy? I didn't even like her much, but I expected there to be some closure with her. And what about Aranea? She was cool, but I guess her entire purpose in the game was just to be cool. And what was with all these random hints about not finding Luna Freya's body yet? Did that mean that she was actually possibly alive?
Still no sign of Lady Lunafreya anywhere. Hopefully we hear some good news about Lady Lunafreya before then. I hope she's okay.
First Secretary Klostra also pledged the government would continue its search for Lady Lunafreya, whose current whereabouts remain unknown.
Or was that just scripting that the game makers forgot to remove once they figured out which direction the end was actually going to go in? Regardless, the further the ending progressed, the more confused I was.
What is that?
It's like the writers were making up the rules as they went, but they weren't explaining any of them. Like the appropriately named TV series Lost. So, Noct goes into this crystal land to destroy a demonic Arden, but then he has to be stabbed by an apparition of his dead relatives, culminating with his father to save the kingdom, but then die himself. What? Why? Why is this happening? Why? Where was the information setting any of this up? And now we have to watch a reunion with some girl that we don't care about while the Brotherhood is forgotten? Are you kidding me? Okay. Even though I'm bashing the end of this game, perhaps the game creators should take this as a compliment. They did a lot of things right. This game is crazy fun. Even after I beat the story, I'm still playing. They made me care so much about these 4 fictional characters in a fantasy world that I became emotionally invested enough to be affected by its ending, for better or for worse. I care enough to spend time making a video that probably nobody will see just because I need to get this out of my system.
I'll miss it once this road trip's over with.